You're muted. There.
Okay.
Now I can hear you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all
It's
right.
all good.
Hey, the storm missed us. It's all good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good, good. So where are you?
I'm at, I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
I'm at an assisted living in Pearland.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little far, but it's very nice. The dogs are here with me.
Ah, there you go.
Everything's good. Yes.
Good.
And how about you? What's new?
Nothing. What could be new? There's nothing going on. I mean,
That's true.
I'm hosting this and helping the presenter today and back at Bristol.
Right.
So that's good.
Great. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be good.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Working on high holidays, and everything takes about 4 times as much effort as it does to do it in person. So.
Right. Right. Exactly. Do you think by next year, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm serious.
I know.
By
Yeah,
next year,
I
we
hope
will
so.
have all of this, like, you know, you can do it with your eyes closed.
I hope so. I hope next year we're all back together.
Oh, of course.
You know,
of course.
We may be wearing masks, but I hope we're back together.
Right. Right. It makes such a difference. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So how are all your grandchildren and Maxine and Larry and?
Larry's busy. He's in Las Vegas now. He's teaching there and enjoying it. Rachel's working in LA. She graduated, my graduate.
Oh my gosh.
And Audrey's in her last year at Carnegie Mellon.
Wow. And what does she want to do?
She's going to, in fact, she signed up for graduate classes in hearing and, oh, I forgot the other thing. She's interested in hearing and understanding.
Okay.
And that's what she's gonna take some graduate classes in it also.
Good for her.
Right, right.
Everybody's busy.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it is good. I can't believe it. You know, my oldest granddaughter just started middle school in Atlanta, virtually, of course, but I can't. She's in middle school and we have a bat mitzvah date already.
You're kidding.
Oh.
Isn't that the best?
It is.
I mean, it really, aside from you're not being right around the corner,
yeah,
I think it is the best. I think actually sometimes it's a little more fun.
Well, I talk to him, you know, and thank God for FaceTime, and I talk to him 3 times a week, and yeah, it's good.
It's wonderful.
You know? The ones here haven't started school yet, so they start on the 8th.
Where did they go?
They go to Coulter.
So is that in-person school?
No.
Good.
Everybody is online right now.
Good.
Yeah. I just don't think it's safe for them to all be together.
I agree.
So, let me let somebody in.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you take my picture off Or do I have to do it?
You have to do it. Go to the bottom of your screen and put stop video. Well, wait, I can do it. I can take your picture off.
Good.
There.
Thank you. I got to wash my hair, and I wanted to see this more than I wanted to wash my hair.
Okay.
It was good to see you for a second, Elaine. Even just for a
Hi.
second. I see Mom. Mom's on here. Hey, Mom.
Where are you, Mom?
Mom's muted.
Oh, I'm going to mute in a minute after I say hello to you and find out what you're doing and what's new.
Sure. By the way, do you mind making me a co-host for this as a presenter?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm unmuted now.
You are a co-host.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mom, where are you?
Oh, good. How are you, Elaine?
She said,
Good.
where are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, so you're having a visit. Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So happy to join you.
Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'd like a bite of that sandwich that Mark is eating.
Me too. Depends on what he has.
He just turned his camera off.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Oh,
It's just
no, it
perfect.
looked good. It looked good.
Yeah, I'll pack it up. I'll send it.
Oh, thank you.
And some for me too.
Got it, Elaine. Hello, Rabbi. Hello again, David.
How are you doing, Chazan?
Doing great.
Excited. Very excited.
This is a big one.
I look forward to everybody hearing the choir stuff. It was great.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Wait, you shared it with him too?
It's a secret club.
Secret club.
Yes.
It's really nice.
Joyce and Elise, hello.
Okay, now, Levin, you've got a lunch and learn. You took that seriously.
I did.
We're all happy today because we're alive.
Yeah.
How's everybody?
Good. Drunk.
Good.
How are you doing?
Good. So nice to see you all. Can't wait to see you in person.
Are you in town, Elise, or are you biking around the country?
I'm still here. I'm still here. I was supposed to bike in Israel for a charity ride for Aline Hospital the end of October, but the biking is going on, but I can't get into Israel, so I'll have to wait.
Yeah.
Where in Israel was that scheduled for?
It's going to be in the Negev. Every year they alternate it. Last year was in the north, and then this year in the Negev.
Wow, it's got to be an experience to ride through the desert.
It's just so exciting. It's so beautiful. What a great way to see Israel and bike with my fellow members of the tribe.
It's cool. We had a controversy at Morning Minion this morning, Ken and Levine.
Uh-oh, do share.
I was thinking about benching Gomel about saying a prayer for Thanksgiving for having survived the storm unscathed, but then the controversy was, well, that doesn't sound like a very appropriate prayer if other people were harmed and damaged.
So the question comes down to, can you have your hearts reach out to others and help out at the same time being appreciative that this time it's not our turn?
That's right. That's right. So it was a complicated conversation.
But aren't we always, I mean, there's always going to be some misfortune in life, but does that prevent us from being thankful for what we have?
Right, right. Good. I tend towards your side, yes.
Ah, there's our star.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good, good. How are you all doing?
Rabbi Teller, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. I'm glad to hear. It sounds like Houston was basically entirely spared the hurricane, right? So, bullet dodged.
That's right. That's right.
Are you still in California? Where are you now?
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco.
Okay.
So we're dealing with our own, crazy natural disasters at the moment, right? But at least the last few days, the fires seem to have, they're sort of getting a handle on it, and at least in San Francisco, the air has been clear. So.
Good.
Yeah.
I think we've got a couple of minutes yet before we'll officially launch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Aryeh, I just want to say that I really enjoyed hearing you perform a few years ago with the Houston Grand Opera.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I had a great time at HGO, and including we came to Breach Shalom. We had a nice, yeah.
We're going to miss you at the high holidays.
Exactly. I know. Well, we'll all be missing each other, right? We'll be on our Zooms. Exactly.
We were just talking about that this morning. We're working on a virtual choir with all of our choir members, which is really a lot of fun to see that all start to come together now. And you see them all on the screen like Brady Bunch style.
Exactly. Exactly. What a year. What a year.
And do you have plans for the high holidays?
Yeah, I'll be here in San Francisco, tuning into the kind of local community I'm a part of here. And actually, one of my sisters, my family's all in New York, and one of my sisters is taking a gap year from school, and she's coming out to California, actually. So she'll come and spend the holidays with me as well, which will be fun. So, yeah.
So, Rabbi, it's noon 01. Do we typically give it a minute, or should we just go ahead and hop in? What do you say?
I'd say 12:03 is my
12:03.
Now don't let us catch you going to 12:04.
It's the PSOC, 12:03.
Yeah, for services we start on time, but programming, I think 3 minutes is a good buffer.
It's like curtain at the Opera House. You always wait a few minutes, It's
all right.
7:03 or 8:03, 8:04.
Yeah, 8:04 at the Opera, and that's pretty. Yeah, I think I've noticed that. It's a little bit.
It's however long it takes for Aryeh to get to the stage, really.
Exactly.
The show can't start without him.
But what's funny, so it's usually a couple minutes after. I'll never forget. I then sort of take that for granted as an audience member too, because I know, okay. Like at the Met, I think it's not till 06 that they start. So if I'm rushing in at, 01, I actually don't really have to rush. I've got 5 minutes to get to my seat. And I sort of had gotten accustomed to this. And then I went to see a show at Lyric Opera of Chicago for the first time. Little did I know, Lyric Opera of Chicago starts right on the minute. I mean, at 7:30, if it's a 7:30 curtain there, the curtain's up and the show's going. And I thought I had a few minutes, and suddenly I'm like sprinting to my seat to get there in time. So, we can't take it for granted.
Exactly. Oh, 12:03. Yeah, I think we're ready.
We're 12:03? Okay, good. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see so many of your faces and to see the names of the other folks where your cameras aren't on. Just nice to know y'all are joining us. I'm very, very excited about this conversation that we're going to get to have today with someone who is a opera star, who is, no, don't make that face, Aryeh, you are an rock star. There's no doubting it. You're also just a great guy. And I've enjoyed getting to know you in the time you've been in Houston. And it was a huge, huge honor. I was joking around that when I saw you walk in the back of Brith Shalom with Monet and Ellen and Mickey, I said, "Oh boy, I have to start singing properly now. I have to put my game face on." Because Aryeh is truly one of the great opera singers who's singing today, and hopefully will be back to singing very soon. So I just wanted to thank you personally for being willing to do this, to join with our shul, and just to kind of have a conversation about your career, your life. It's fascinating to me. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, my pleasure. And, it was wonderful to sort of be an adopted member of the Brit Shalom community, for that year I was living in Houston and spending high holidays with you all and whatnot. And it's lovely to be with you today, virtually, right?
So you probably, I always wonder with you if you get tired of doing this, because so few people probably know when you say, "Oh, I'm a countertenor," what that means. So you spend so much of your life explaining what a countertenor is. You probably have your elevator pitch down, but do you mind doing it for us now and telling us about what a countertenor is?
Absolutely. And I love sharing the joys of being a countertenor. So a countertenor is kind of at its simplest a man who sings in the vocal range traditionally associated with a woman. It's a voice type that kind of reemerged in the 50s and 60s, so only about 70 years ago. But we sing music that was written kind of since then, since the voice type reemerged, and music that was written originally for castrati, for these castrated men who had these kind of exceptional, unique high voices. And that was back in the 17th and 18th centuries. So we sing kind of some of that older music and newer music. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I can go into the sort of science of it, but that's sort of what it is at its simplest of how we at least make the sound,
Well, what was interesting to me when I first heard you sing, which was 2017 at Concert of Aryeh's, and I think you were up first that year, is that right?
Yeah.
So you started the program and you had, I don't remember, it was a Handel aria, I know, where you had one note, you sustained you had like a whole mezza voce thing. What was?
Yeah. It was Dove Se, yeah, which starts out with this mezza di voce thing, where you start really quiet and slowly grow, staying on one pitch and then kind of shrink back. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Concert of Aryeh's is a vocal competition that's held at Houston Grand Opera every year, and it's part of the application program into our studio apprentice training program that Aryeh was a member of for one season, and then went to the Adler program in San Francisco, and career has been exploding ever since. But I remember hearing you in 2017, and what struck me was your voice. Most countertenors, I'll be honest with you, that I had heard in the past, I always thought it was a beautiful sound, but felt really underpowered. It always seemed like somebody was in the sound room turning the control switch down. But when you sing with such full body in your sound. I never feel like the voice drops out. It feels like you have the full overtones of anybody singing in their full voice. Is that something special about the way you were trained, or?
Yeah, you're very kind. I would say two things. One is that, I think part of it is frankly just that I'm a much bigger, broad-shouldered kind of guy than most countertenors. So most countertenors, if you kind of associate in general, and whether it's sopranos or countertenors or whatever, the smaller the body, the higher the voice usually is how it works. So most kind of light, small, lyric sopranos, whatever, are kind of, shorter people. And it's the same thing. Most countertenors are, sort of shorter, very sort of slim guys, and I just am this kind of broad-shouldered 6'2". So I think part of it is frankly just that there's more space for the sound to resonate in my body maybe than your average countertenor. But it's also obviously something I've worked towards a lot, and my sort of goal has always been that I was very sort of growing up listening to some countertenors who became heroes of mine on CDs and all this kind of stuff. Then when I would go hear them live, there were multiple cases where these sort of heroes of mine, I would go hear live and I was so disappointed because it sounded nothing like it did on the CD, because on the CD, they really pumped up their volume and it sounded so full over the orchestra. And then I would go hear them in person, and it was a very kind of quiet sound, which is lovely, But I always sort of thought, no, we should hold ourselves to the same standards that a mezzo soprano does, a woman singing in the same vocal range. But I will say what's interesting to me kind of physiologically, the reason that most countertenors have those smaller sounds is, sort of science-wise, what we're doing to make the higher vibrations, to sing the higher pitches, we are basically reducing the amount of mass of the vocal cords that we use to sing compared to a man who's singing in his normal kind of quote unquote voice. And so as a result, when a tenor is singing, for example, a tenor is using about 75 to 80% of his vocal cords to vibrate together. But when a countertenor is singing, we're only using about 15% of the vocal cord to vibrate together. So you're barely using anything of the vocal cords to vibrate together. And therefore it's like a physics equation. The less mass, the faster it can vibrate. The vocal cords can vibrate. So then we can kind of double the speed of the vocal cords moving to match how quickly a woman's vocal cords can move. So that is sort of why I think most countertenors have, sort of a smaller sound is, it kind of makes sense if you're only using barely any of the vocal cord compared to everyone else, whether it's a woman singing in a woman's range or a man singing in a man's range. So it is this kind of unique little thing.
So I want to give everybody a chance just to actually hear a clip of Aryeh singing. And Aryeh, with your approval, I made sure to choose from the approved Aryeh Nussbaum, the real hashtag. Yay. No, but this is a clip. What I'm going to play now is the Ars Lyrica, just an excerpt of you singing that Wie starb die Helden, the Bach, that you did, if that's all right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
just so everybody can get a chance to kind of hear a little bit of Aryeh's beautiful voice and hear what I mean, how it's this full-bodied sound. It combines the beauty of a countertenor range and the music, but also with the excitement of a real full-throated opera singer. That is gorgeous. Bravo. I mean, I wish I could, give you a standing ovation right now. I mean, that's so beautiful. So I'd love to, first of all, do you enjoy listening to that? I mean, is it hard for you to listen to a recording of yourself?
Yeah, I hate listening to myself. And I think it's true of any kind of I don't know if it's even just artists, but in general, you know, we're sort of trained to just nitpick like crazy. And that's
Right.
the way you get better, is by constantly listening to everything you hear that's wrong. So all I can ever hear is, oh God, oh man, that B flat was a little flat. Oh, you know, or, but you know, I can appreciate, okay, you know, I'm not horrible, but all I can hear is the room for growth.
So one of the things I think it's just fascinating about you in particular is kind of your story of how you got into singing this. So I'd love to just take a minute and just chat with you a little bit about this. But
Totally.
So do I have this right? You didn't even know you had a decent singing voice until there was a birthday party. Is this right? There was some like American Idol. What was this? You had a
Yeah, so it was like maybe 6th or 7th grade. I went to a Jewish day school growing up, and there were 15 kids in our class, and so it was my friend Elias's birthday party, and we were all over at his house. And this was when American Idol was the big show, and he had an American Idol themed birthday party. So it was, you know, basically a karaoke party, but sort of, you know, with American Idol branding. And so every kid went up and sang their thing, and I sang my thing like any other kid. And
what did you sing?
You know, I don't know, and I need to ask Frances, Elias's mom, if she has any recollection. I doubt it. It was a while ago.
Wie stark die Helden?
I know, it's shockingly, I don't think so. Maybe some Mariah Carey or something, something a little different. But no, so I sang my song, and then when my parents came to pick me up at the end of the party, his mom, Frances, told my parents, you know, oh, you know, Aryeh, he's really got a nice singing voice. You should do something with that. And they said, oh, okay. And we all went to the same shul, and I remember it was like, you know, a couple Shabbats later or something, she went up and she really like badgered my mom. I was like, no, like seriously, he has a beautiful singing voice. I know no one in your family is musical, but you really have to do something with it. And so my mom said, okay. And she did a little bit of research, and it turned out, and it was great fortune that the day school I was going to, the Hannah Senesh Community Day School in Brooklyn, literally right down the block on Court Street, was this choir, the Brooklyn Youth Chorus. And so she said, okay, I'll take him over for an audition. Without really knowing how prominent this choir was. And it was just my luck. I mean, I really joined because it was a 1-minute walk, so it was easy to go there for rehearsal after school ended. And it turned out Brooklyn Youth Chorus is kind of one of their 2 premier children's choirs in New York City, and it's one of them. And so we were singing it.
You got to sing with some of these. I mean, I was reading, it was Billy Joel, Sting. Like,
Elton John,
you got to sing some really amazing. Wait, the Elton John one was amazing. That was was it a 60th birthday party?
Yeah, it was his 60th birthday concert at Madison Square Garden. And we were singing backup for him, and it was his 60th performance at Madison Square Garden, which at that point was breaking the record for most performances by one artist, which I think Billy Joel has now reclaimed his title. But it was quite an evening, and he took great care of us. And just even in our break room, we had all these celebrities, and Bill Clinton came, and Whoopi Goldberg all coming to say hi to the choir. I mean, it was a wild experience. Wow.
And at the same time, you were also singing with Hazamir, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I started singing with Hazamir, probably about the same time, 8th grade, something like that.
So you and I actually share this in common, because the first time I led High Holiday services as a cantor was in my dad's shul. I think you may have been a year younger than me. I think I was 16. I think you were 15. Is that right? When you first did it?
It's like 14 or 15. Yeah.
Well, so now when you were davening at that point, had your voice changed at 14?
Yeah. So my voice had changed. And it was funny. So that all came about. I was, sort of friendly, obviously, with the cantor at our shul, and this other, big kind of conservative shul nearby. There was some like Tu B'Shvat, like joint event that our shuls were doing one year, I guess, whatever year I was 14 or whatever. And they had just sort of lost their High Holiday cantor. And so then their cantor talked to our cantor, who then sort of introduced them to me, and the whole thing kind of came together. But my voice had dropped, and I thought, oh, there are no countertenor cantors. So I do this in a kind of a man voice, even though I had, I was still singing in the choir, and I was, just singing in my countertenor voice. And so that first year that I did it all in my kind of modal baritone voice, which I'll be the first to say, I'm a horrible baritone. I mean, I'm a pretty decent countertenor, but I'm a horrible baritone. I've never trained the baritone voice.
I'm sorry. I don't understand how that's possible. I mean, you're a great musician. You would know how to phrase things, I'd imagine. You must have a decent baritone voice.
I can, you know, match pitch obviously in my baritone voice, but honestly, I've never trained it in any way. So I can't even really sustain a line very long. I mean, it's really, I sound like a high school freshman, you know, when I'm singing baritone or something. It's really, it's nothing to write home about. But no, so I did the whole high holiday, you know, I did my services in my baritone range. And for my favorite piyut, which is Le'el Orech Din, which is this piyut that I had really kind of, you know, immediately loved. For that one, I switched into my countertenor voice. And I said, oh, okay, you know, I'll just sort of try it out and see if they're okay with it. And after, you know, first day of Rosh Hashanah ended, everyone comes up to me and is like, oh my God, you know, what did you do for that one? Why don't you do that all the time? And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it's okay if I, you know, that I can be a countertenor cantor. And then from then on out, it was, I think, 5 or 6 years I led high holiday services. And this was all long before I had any intention of a kind of musical career. But my big sort of career goal, I wanted to be a rabbi and a cantor. That was my, I had grown up wanting to be an astronaut, and then I wanted to be a rabbi, and then I wanted to be a cantor. And I thought I would combine them all. And I wanted to be a rabbi, cantor, astronaut who would bring Judaism to the aliens. That was my dream job, if you asked me when I was a kid. But, you know, life took a whole different winding path.
I want to play for everybody, if I could. This is probably a good time to do this, is to play an example of you just doing, it's not cantorial music the same way, but it is a setting of the Kaddish by Ravel, which you have recorded. But one thing I'll just mention, so for those who were at Brit Shalom, I guess it would have been 2018 that you came to do that artist in residence concert with the studio.
Yeah.
Aryeh came and did a little concert for us at Brit Shalom with the HGO studio, and he actually got out a machzor and did Le'el Orech Din.
It's true. It's all coming back to me now.
It was so beautiful. So I want you all to hear this. This is a recording. Aryeh, do you want to maybe set this up for everybody, the Kaddish?
Yeah, sure. This was, I think, actually the first like remote recording piece I did with a friend during the pandemic. So it was right around Pesach, I think, was the inspiration. And yeah, so we recorded, you know, it was we're figuring out the whole, you know, he recorded his part and then I recorded my part, and we kind of tried to stitch it together and obviously make it sound like we were performing together. But yeah, it's this beautiful setting of the Kaddish by Ravel, who was not a Jewish composer, but he was commissioned by this Jewish soprano to set the Kaddish and this Yiddish folk song as well. And he really, I mean, I think he really got it. He did a really, really beautiful arrangement of the piece.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. That is unbelievable. Bravo.
Thank you.
I mean,
That's
I
when I
don't
was
know whether to say
rocking my.
amen or bravo. I mean, wow, wow. That's so. I mean, you have to be happy with that one, right? Or no, not
Yeah,
that one.
I think so, and especially because it was the first time we were figuring out this whole, recording on our own iPads, whatever, from afar. From actually Ronnie and I, this friend of mine, we, at least at the time he just moved, but we lived like 2 blocks away from each other. But for all we could have known, recording from apart, we could have been in one of us in Thailand and the other one in New York. It was a whole new world to figure out how to communicate over technology while recording music
And that
together.
must be a really hard one to do because there's not really like a metric pulse, you know what I mean, to keep you tied
Exactly.
together. You kind of have to, I noticed the pianist, he was kind of, in a few moments, he was kind of like trying to mouth the words with you. Was that like giving you cues as you were recording, or how were
Well,
you
so
doing?
this one, originally he recorded his part and then I was trying to record over it, and it can't really work that way, obviously, because as you said, it's cantorial sort of music. I mean, it's very kind of improvisatory, just inherently. It's not something generally that has a very sort of strict, metric style. So then eventually I recorded, and I was using my headphones as my microphone actually, and then he recorded around me, kind of, so he was listening and following,
Got it.
and doing it, and it just worked much better that way.
So I want to ask you a little bit. So you went to, even though you had this, amazing voice and, you had these experiences singing with Elton John and all these, over the top things. You were doing your leading services, you were with Hazamir. You then go to Princeton for public policy. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I had kind of fallen in love with politics when I was in high school. I had this really inspirational English teacher, actually, Miss Carol Leolius, who, just really kind of inspired me. And that was my whole plan, was I wanted to go study public policy, go to law school, and go into policy work. And so, when it came time to apply to college, I didn't even apply to any conservatories. I had no intention of a musical career, in any way. And funnily enough, I had still never been to an opera. I had, I'd gone to high school at LaGuardia High School of the Arts, the big performing arts high school in New York, which was built with Lincoln Center. It's kind of, the building is in the exact same style, and it's literally right behind the Met. So I would walk by the Met from the 66th Street subway stop every day on my way to high school, but I had never gone inside. I mean, I had never seen an opera. And so that kind of happened while I was at Princeton, and everything sort of changed.
What was the first opera you saw?
First opera I saw was my freshman spring at Princeton, and it was La Boheme. I won a free ticket from the Princeton Music Department. Someone donated a to the Met, and it's great grand tier seats, kind of second row grand tier center. And yeah, so someone donated back. It's like a subscription to 12 or 14 operas over the course of the year. And I thought, it'd be cool to go see an opera, go back, visit my family for the weekend. So I just started entering.
Was it the Zeffirelli production? The big.
It was, exactly. It was the big grand, and that was my great fortune. I was entering for every opera that they were raffling off, and it was all sorts of more obscure and out there operas and productions, but I only won on like my 10th try, and it was La Boheme, and I knew nothing about. I mean, to me they were all the same, but it was quite. It's the perfect first opera, obviously.
So, but now for you though, as a countertenor, was seeing Bohème, there's no countertenor role in Bohème though, but you felt like I still want to be part of this opera magic, or was that the moment that you wanted to move over and do this, or?
Yeah, no, exactly. It was, I mean, it was my first time seeing an opera at all. I'd been singing countertenor, but, or alto in choirs, but, that was really it. I had done that through high school and whatnot, but, I'd never sung really solo or seen anyone, perform an opera or anything. So yeah, for me, it was just this moment of seeing these emotions portrayed in this kind of larger than life way that it just really kind of swept me off my feet. And I went back to school and I said, you know what, I think I want to try and do that. And to this day, La Boheme is my favorite opera, even if, and I've had many a reporter ask me, oh, will you get to sing in La Boheme one day? And it's like, unfortunately not, just not the nature of being a countertenor, but I'll always still love it.
Excellent. So you actually then after Bohème, you switch your major, is that right? Was it history you did?
Exactly, yeah. So I switched my major. So I saw the opera, and then my sophomore year at Princeton, I was sort of, thinking about this and started to take voice lessons and all this kind of stuff. But it wasn't until really the summer after my sophomore year of school that everything, fully kind of transformed. I won this fellowship from the university to pursue kind of being a singer for the summer. It's called the Dale Sophomore Award, and they give it to like 10 sophomores a year to pursue a dream deferred kind of for the summer. And they give you a bunch of money and, it's pretty kind of open-ended. But I had this proposal that got accepted, and it was this great experience where there was this famous countertenor who had gone to Princeton, Anthony Roth-Costanzo, who I then performed with. I performed with in multiple productions, but the first of which was at HGO in Julius Caesar that year that I was there. And Anthony kind of mentored me for the summer and connected me to his teachers and his coaches, and just, yeah, really kind of opened me up into this world a bit. And so then it was after that summer I went back. And the feedback I got was, there are few enough countertenors that if you're a decent countertenor, it's much easier to kind of try and get a working career going than if you're a decent soprano. I mean, there are just thousands of sopranos who want to do it, and there are just not that many countertenors. So the feedback I got from these sort of experts I was exposed to for the first time was that I had a naturally beautiful and big enough voice that if I really put myself to it, there was at least something of a chance that I'd be able to make a career. And that for me was enough encouragement to tell my parents, who were very disappointed, no more law school for this Jewish kid. And I told them I was switching my major to history to study the history behind the 17th and 18th century music that I was beginning to really love. And yeah, the rest is history.
So this is something that fascinates me about your career in particular. I was reading an article about you, so I don't know if this is something I'm reading, so you have to verify whether I've got this right. But the article talked about how there was like a 1 or 2 week period where you had applied for a number of programs after Princeton to kind of jumpstart and get your first kind of steps going in your career as an opera singer, and you were rejected from every single one of them. So you took it on yourself then that, well, I'm not going to let anything stop me. You moved back to New York and you set up your own sort of discipline around your voice lessons, your training, you build your own curriculum. And within 2 years, you win Concert of Arias at HGO and your career takes off.
Yeah, it's true. It was certainly very disappointing. Coming out of Princeton, I applied for a number of vocal master's programs, so get a master's in voice, which is kind of the traditional path, and other post-grad fellowships to go sort of have an excuse to go to Europe and do some music research that would allow me to go study with a voice teacher, whatever it was, all these different sort of projects. And yeah, it was a span of about maybe 10 days that I heard back from everything. And I had been in the finals for everything. I mean, I got auditions almost everywhere I applied, and I was in the finals. Multiple people had told me, we can't wait to have you here. When you're here, we're going to do X, Y, Z for you. And then one after another, the rejections came in. And, it was certainly scary. I know for my parents, especially. Here I was on public policy, law school path, and now I want to be an opera singer, something none of us knew anything about. And then of course that happened. But yeah, I kind of put my head down and assembled my own sort of program, and a couple perfect right place, right time kind of things happened, that sort of led me from one place to the other, and I got very lucky.
Well, I think you're being a little modest in calling it luck. I think there's a tremendous amount of discipline that comes with that. And I mean, that's something that, especially in your career, I think you really see a lot of that. It's pretty incredible. So 2 years later, 2017, you come to Houston, which is where I first heard you sing. You sing that amazing Handel aria. And Aryeh was put in the very difficult position of being the very first singer in the competition. It's probably the hardest position, don't you think? I mean,
Oh yeah.
because you're also
feel
the
even
furthest
more
from
stressed.
everybody's memory at the end of, when they're all thinking that it's like, oh, he was the guy that sang all the way 3 hours ago at the beginning of the competition. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. But this was Concert of Arias was the first like vocal competition I was ever in. So to me, it was all a total new stress. It was all the same crazy stress to me.
So I mean, obviously, it was a stress you did well at, because that was the year where you just started sweeping all of these competitions. There was so 3 weeks after you win first prize at Concert of Arias, was that, would you say that's probably the biggest breakout moment career-wise so far? I mean, like, is that because that was the New York Times
Was
article
the
of
Met
Zachary
competition.
Wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. That was the thing that really kind of changed my life overnight, or kind of put me on people's radar, maybe in a way that that previously I wasn't someone who had come up through Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music or any of the big programs or anything. So
can you tell
that
us a
was
little
really
bit about what the Met auditions is for those of us who maybe might not know?
totally. So the Met auditions, I kind of compared, it's like the American Idol of opera in a way. There are something like 60 districts all over the US. I mean, Houston is one of the districts, of course, and it starts out with over 1,000 people, and it kind of filters through these different districts, and there's 4 rounds. So first you do the district round, then the regional round. So like, I think Houston is part of a region with New Orleans and a couple other sort of cities nearby. And then from there, the people who win the regions get filtered, sort of advanced to go onto the stage of the Met itself for the semifinals, and then they whittle it down to 8 or 9 people for the finals, and then they pick a few winners. And I entered the competition on a total whim. So basically I had entered the district way back in like August, before I had come and done Concert of Arias or anything like that. And I was working with this great voice teacher, Dr. Robert C. White Jr. in New York. And I asked him, the deadline was like 2 days away for the Met competition. And I happened to have a voice lesson kind of really well lined up right before the application was due. And I asked him, and I said, what do you think? I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I should enter. And he said, oh, listen, it's a $25 application fee and you get some great feedback. You should enter. You really should enter. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, enter. And well, I'm glad I did, because over the course of that year, as I advanced through the competition, I made a lot of vocal progress. And of course, each round that I advanced through, I was absolutely shocked to advance through. I had no expectation of anything, and it all culminated in March of that year with winning the competition. And again, I thought I was maybe, they picked 5 or 6 winners. And so I figured, okay, I must be the number 5 or the number 6, sort of winner in the rankings. I mean, here I am winning this competition with the big student at Juilliard, who was like the star of their class, and the big student at the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philly. And, all these people who had really been on everyone's radar for a while. And then I was very surprised the next day to get a Google alert or whatever it was, and see this New York Times review where Zachary Wolf, the classical music editor of the Times, said, I have it framed up here. It was Met Opera discovers a new star, Aryeh Nussbaum Cohen. Met Opera discovers a young star, Aryeh Nussbaum Cohen. And
I've actually
say that was not what I was expecting.
I've actually got the article. So and for those of you who are not in the know, with arts critics and stuff, there's people in the opera business. There's the main critic. There's this Anthony Tomasini, but everybody always looks to Zachary Wolf. Zach Wolf knows his stuff. He's the opera critic. Whenever Zach Wolf writes something, he knows. He's the guy.
He's very critical. He's very critical, which is especially when I saw that he was writing the review. It was a worrisome turn of events, And
no, he's an incredible sort of authority on on the whole thing. But what he wrote here, I'm going to read you just a quote from this, if I could, just for everybody to kind of hear the significance of this article. This was a big piece of news. It says, and this is Zach Wolf writing about the final round of the Met competitions that Aryeh won. It says, there were several good singers, but there was only one complete artist. At just 23, Aryeh Nussbaum Cohen already possesses a remarkable gift for intimate communication in a vast hall, combined with a voice of velvety gentleness. He goes on and praises Aryeh, and then he towards the end, he says, expressive, dignified, his phrasing confident, his ornamentation stylishly discreet. He brought tears to my eyes. Mr. Cohen was deservedly named one of the competition's 6 winners, but he stood clearly apart from the pack. There was only one singer who could plausibly stand with the voluptuous voice Jamie Barton. These were past winners and presenters. The commanding Amber Wagner, the impassioned Michael Fabiano, the distinguished previous winners who performed while the judges deliberated. Mr. Cohen is ready. So how did that, I mean, that must have been just mind-blowing to read that. Did you?
It's still mind-blowing to hear.
Was it a shock to you, I mean, at that point?
Oh, absolutely. And this was my first time getting any mention in the New York Times. And so it was quite a way to start. I had been right before this in the George London competition in February of that year, which the New York Times typically reviews every year. And so I thought, oh, you know, I'm finally going to get maybe a mention in my hometown paper, the paper of record, whatever. And they didn't send a critic that year. So then when I got into the Met finals, it was like, oh, okay, good. You know, maybe my name will appear in the New York Times now. And that kind of mention is certainly not what I was expecting in any event. And let's just say it was certainly hard to sleep that night and for quite a few nights after that.
Did you stay in touch with the other competition winners that year, or was it kind of awkward after they said that you were the clear standout?
It was a little awkward, but thankfully now, you know, we had become very good friends, and we're still good friends. And I know there were some especially who, you know, rightfully viewed themselves as the favorites, you know, coming out of the Juilliards and all this stuff. And so to have this, you know, random Jewish kid from Brooklyn who never went to a music school to get this kind of mention, you know, I'm sure if I had been the star student at Juilliard, I would have been a little bit upset too.
Well, so Aryeh's career has taken off since then. Has been singing all around the world. Unfortunately, a number of gigs had to be canceled, of course, with what's going on. And but also another thing that I'd love to just take a quick minute just to highlight recently, which was pretty exciting last year, was the recording that you did with Joanne Falletta that won the Grammy for the best classical composition. So now you are the Grammy award-winning Aryeh Nussbaum Cohen.
Well, and again, talk about right place, right time. You know, I've really had a couple, you know, of course there's hard work and discipline and talent that goes into all this, but there's also, you know, being in the right place at the right time. And so I get this amazing review from Zachary Wolf Times. And it just so happens that about 4 or 5 days later, Joanne Falletta, who's the music director of the Buffalo Philharmonic and is a really kind of well-respected multi-Grammy winning conductor, Joanne Falletta is getting ready to premiere this new song cycle with the Virginia Symphony, which she was the music director of as well at the time, which then was going to go on to be recorded with the London Symphony Orchestra. And it was supposed to be sung by David Daniels, who was, of course, you know, the most famous countertenor of all time, at least at the time. And David got sick and had to pull out of the engagement. And it's this world premiere a couple days before the world premiere. And it just so happened that about 4 days before that, I had gotten this review. And so my name was in the news. Whereas if that had happened 1 week before, I'm sure they would have called someone else. I mean, no one knew who I was really, you know, at least on a huge national level until this crazy New York Times review came out. And so, you know, again, right place, right time. I get a call from Joanne actually directly saying, you know, can you sort of save the day and come in and do this? And I said, you know, absolutely. And so I went in and I premiered it in Virginia, and then we recorded it in London with the London Symphony at Abbey Road Studios, which was totally crazy. It was my first time doing any commercial recording. And so to be with the London Symphony Orchestra at Abbey Road, it was quite a way to start. And then the CD went on to win a Grammy. So it was, you know, quite a winding sequence of, you know, crazy events. Certainly nothing I could have ever expected.
I, I want to play one more recording if I could, make you suffer through listening to yourself sing, because I know it's so tough, but it's such a joy for all of us that, you know, it nets out in your favor. The recording I want to play is your competition performance at Operalia. Um, and just maybe a minute or so of that. And could you set up kind of what Operalia is and what this specific performance that we're about to watch?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was last summer. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it was only a year ago. What a crazy year this has been. It feels like forever ago. But yeah, so this is Operalia, which is, I would say there are, you know, I was sort of fortunate to do most of the big kind of American opera competitions. And then there are just a few really big kind of international ones. And Operalia is the one, it was, I would say, the biggest competition for, you know, kind of mid-late 20s or early 30s, that sort of stage of being an aspiring singer. Whereas then there's like Cardiff Singer of the World, which is, you know, these sorts of competitions, which are for a little further on. And so I applied and got in for Operalia last summer, and it was this amazing experience. It's Placido Domingo's competition, sponsored by Rolex, and it was in Prague last year. It changes locations every year, and actually it was supposed to be in Tel Aviv this summer, which was going to be really exciting. We had a great time in Prague, but when I saw that it was going to be in Israel, I was like, man, I should have waited another year and done it in Israel this year. But
thank God you didn't.
Exactly. Thank goodness I did the competition before this pandemic hit. But yeah, so this was the finals of Operalia last summer, which I was fortunate to win third prize at. And I was the only American to place in the competition last year.
Wow. Okay, here we are. Let's give a listen. And notice who's in the pit conducting, by the way. So I would play the whole thing if I could. I want to leave just a few minutes at the end for people to be able to pepper in some questions. But Aryeh, I want to just tell you again how much I really appreciate you doing this. You know, you're one of the most sought after opera singers in the world, and deservedly so. And you're a mensch, and you're a good guy. And I'm really grateful that you did this. Thank you so much.
My total pleasure. Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be with you all.
One other thing I'll also add before opening up that I didn't mention is it's a funny thing. So right after you moved to Houston, it was Hurricane Harvey immediately, right? I mean, didn't you?
I arrived as the hurricane was hitting. I was driving down, and the storm was coming, and I was kind of racing to arrive before roads might become impassable.
So I get this random phone call that was sent to me through, I don't know if it was Jewish Federation or something that connected through Birth Shalom, and that there was a reporter who was calling down to ask about the Jewish community in Houston. Turned out to be your mom, who writes for
It's true.
Haaretz.
It's true. Deborah Nussbaum Cohen, yes.
And when I heard her last name, I was like, wait a minute, do you know Aryeh Nussbaum? And she's like, that's my son.
Exactly. It's a small Jewish world, right?
So we had a question from Rona here, who asked, where are you now and what is next in your career?
Yeah, so I'm in San Francisco. So I, after the Houston studio, I came to be in the Adler Fellowship program here at San Francisco Opera, and I graduated from that program in December. But my fiance Abby and I live here, and we love it here. So we're kind of staying in the Bay Area for the time being. Once you graduate these programs, then you're just a freelancer. So you fly around, and you know, you can live anywhere basically. So yeah, we're staying here for now. And what's next? Well, a lot's been canceled, obviously. I had been kind of canceled, all my engagements up through next April. And now a new big contract has just come into the picture for January, February in a part of the world where the pandemic is kind of under control. So I just signed that contract a couple days ago, and I'll get to go do one of my dream roles over on in Midsummer Night's Dream there. But then after that, you know, I think I've been especially grateful the kind of place I am in career-wise for this pandemic to hit. I'm sort of grateful to be someone who's already kind of on people's radars. So I still have some future bookings and things coming in. You know, I imagine if this had happened 2 years earlier in my career, you know, before anyone knew who I was, you know, then I'd really just be sitting around with nothing to do. But what's been nice in the last month or two, hiring has started to pick up for kind of future contracts, and opera is planned super far out. I mean, my latest contract, I think, is in 2024 right now. So it's been, you know, kind of nice to have some more great things down the line come into the picture. And yeah, just trying to kind of work on those future roles and get prepped for when we are able to get back to performing live.
Andy had a question. Has your mother and father come to terms with their disappointment over not becoming a lawyer?
Absolutely they have. I'll say, I think what really did it for them was that New York Times review. That was the moment where they said, okay, we can't be proud of our lawyer son, but we have this to be very proud of as well. No, and they're, you know, big fans, and they, you know, they've both really, it's been sweet. You know, neither of them knew anything about opera or classical music really. And they've both now really kind of become opera buffs themselves, and they come and fly around to see me in all my different engagements, and they've come to see me in Houston perform multiple times. And so no, it's been lovely. They're certainly proud and happy with the route I ended up taking, even if it wasn't what we all expected.
Rhoda Goldberg asks us to spill the beans on all of our future planning at HGO, and asks if there are any plans for you to perform at HGO. And Rona also mentions hoping you can come back to Houston. So do you have any future things coming up in Houston? Ars Lyrica, the Symphony, HGO?
Yeah, so actually, I had a great time with Saul in Houston this past fall, and being back at HGO, and Patrick Summers and I are talking about some things, but I don't have any concrete, future contracts at HGO yet. But I do have, I was supposed to be with Ars Lyrica, back with Ars Lyrica this spring, I think it was one of the things that got canceled, but that one's been postponed. So I think it's next September 2021. We'll get to do that program where I'll sing the title role in two different settings of Hercules, of both Bach and Handel's settings of the Hercules sort of legend. So yeah, I'll be back for that, and hopefully again.
Will you perform that bare-chested? Aryeh is what?
Unfortunately not. Although if you came to see Saul, my King David,
That's
was
true.
bare-chested. So I've already shared my chest with the people of Houston.
So we have a question. Here. Let's do these out of order if we could.
Yeah.
Talk for a minute, if you don't mind, just about your professional career and how does that jibe with your personal Jewish observance and your Jewish identity?
Totally. I think one of the things, I sort of stumbled into being a countertenor. It wasn't my plan, It wasn't some big intentional choice. But one of the reasons I'm really grateful is that Handel particularly set a lot of these great biblical stories, of these great Torah stories and things. And so kind of by happenstance, I get to sing King David and King Solomon and all these great Jewish heroes who I grew up, kind of reading about and admiring. I now get to study up on these characters and embody these roles. So one of the roles I'm also adding to my repertoire I think in 2023 is the title role in Handel's Solomon, which I'm really looking forward to. So one of the things I really love is getting to kind of connect the dots, so to speak, between, my Jewish identity and these Jewish heroes I grew up admiring and actually getting to perform those characters and also getting to, the kind of cases when I choose the music that I sing, in recital, the songs, bringing things like that Ravel Kaddish, which I've sung in recital many times, and just bringing all that together because it's a lot of the stuff that inspires me most. So I definitely love kind of trying to bring everything together as much as I can. I'll say too, right now, I think a lot of singers who are obviously not performing live are, trying to think of what to do. And I'm right now working on a kind of CD proposal that my manager and I are going to be presenting to some labels. And one of my, big kind of career aspirations is to record a whole CD of Hebrew and Jewish music. One of my absolute bucket list things, I've gotten to visit some of the couple kind of beautiful remaining old synagogues in Europe. Are just these beautiful spaces, and I'm sure many of you have been, with great acoustics. And one of my kind of long-term goals is to record a CD of things like that Ravel Kaddish, which he also wrote with orchestra and whatnot, and go on a little bit of a tour and kind of bring some of these programs maybe to the great old synagogues of Europe. So who knows, but it's certainly, my Jewish identity is always a part of kind of what I'm planning and trying to do.
Rabbi, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accompany Aryeh on his tour.
Motion, accept it.
We've got just a few minutes, and I see a question here from Linda. Talk to us, if you don't mind, just about the shelf life of a countertenor. In other words, how long would you expect to be able to sing at this level? Yeah,
so we have a shorter shelf life than maybe some other voice types. Our kind of vocal peak, I would say, is your 30s and into your early 40s. And kind of by the time you're 50, your voice has lost a lot of its kind of meat. So yeah, I feel particularly fortunate that my career has kind of gotten going at a particularly young age, because it means that, by the time I'm 30, I'll have made debuts at many of the world's greatest opera houses. And so, it's kind of nice to sort of have the ball rolling a little earlier, since, we don't have as long to sort of go now. And the flip side of that is that our voices just mature younger than some other voice types. So if you're a great bass, I mean, many of the most famous basses, these like Wagnerian basses, Rene Papa, and these kinds of guys have to kind of bide their time in their 30s. And, many of these people are just waiting tables and working retail, just kind of waiting for their voices to fully develop. And then, of course, they can continue to sing on into their 60s, 70s at a really, really high level. But I'm sort of, grateful to sort of have my career going and to not kind of have to wait as long for the voice to mature. And then my sort of joke is that, I still love politics and I'm very politically engaged. And, since I have to retire from singing at 50, I joke maybe I'll move back to New York and run for city council or something. Who knows? But, I'll still have time to pursue that passion as well after the voice kind of peters out.
You got my vote. So anybody else, if you want to take off your mic for a second and just throw out any question, you're welcome to do it. Otherwise, we've got a couple minutes and we'll just break early. And Andy.
Is there anything we can do to encourage you to perform or record Leil or Dean again?
That would be on that CD. So it's one of the kind of proposed pieces on that CD, along with some other PU team and kind of traditional pieces. So we'll see.
It was awesome, possibly the most awesome sound I've ever heard in a synagogue. And I've been putting up with sounds in a synagogue for 60 years. So yours was awesome.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andy.
There's certainly no putting up going on at Breathe Shalom.
Oh, stop it. No, I was seriously so nervous when you walked in, especially the second year when I saw you come in for the high holidays, because the first time I figured, well, maybe Ellen and Mickey dragged him, but then you came back the next day and you were so
It's
kind.
true. I spent two years of high holidays in a row in Houston. It was great. I was back for Saul this past fall during the high holidays, and no, it was really, really wonderful to be back with you all and to hear you, David.
Well, we love you, Aryeh, and thank you just for doing this and just for all you do. Really, keep it up. We can't wait to hear you live again soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
So
My pleasure.
I got to see Saul because I didn't see much opera till Nara started working in the costume shop. And so I was at Saul, and it was a very different kind of opera. Like totally different experience.
Totally, yeah. Not your average opera, not your average production. But I love that production. Absolutely love that production, and just getting to sing King David, which I've gotten to do a few times now, and getting to kind of do it on the stage. And actually, a recording that I made of that role has just come out about a month or two ago, as well. So that's available for streaming on various platforms too. But it was great fun for me.
Okay, Aryeh, we're going to let you go.
Beautiful.
We've had you for our full hour. We're grateful.
Thank you.
From your recording
Thank you.
projects.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be well. Stay healthy, everyone.
You too.
Thanks.
And an early Lashana Tova.
Exactly, an early Shana Tova.
Okay, can get off.